I would like to introduce you to Jess Villion. Jess, you're class of 2004, I believe. I hope I'm right. Oh, I was off by one. Jess Villion is also an associate director of alumni relations, and she is my new partner in crime, although we go much further than that, but it's going to be perfect. And we also want to introduce our new director of alumni relations. Alexandra, I am going to pass the mic to you, and you want to say a few words.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Yarel. Hello, good evening to everybody. I'm Alexandra Matura-Mensah. I started on Monday, so I'm very fresh. I can't answer too many questions. I'm an alum from 2004, so I was there when Jess was there as well too, and I remember her. And I'm so glad to be here at Trinity at this time, at this moment in history, part of the bicentennial celebration, and just to be a part of all the great things that are happening there. I have two girls. My oldest is a senior in high school, and we had the opportunity to visit the campus this past summer, the college experience and the process and all that. And we went to Trinity, looking with all the other schools, and I said, just check it out. I don't know what you think. And, after our tour, after her interview and just everything we saw, she was like, you know what? Yeah, I can see myself here. And that just really gave me pride to feel that the daughter that I've raised and how I have raised her and to have the values she has can look at Trinity and say that this is a school that I can see myself. So just really excited to be a part of this new trajectory that we're taking. I mean, Dr. Burger-Sweeney has done a lot in the last 8 years, and there's more to be done. And so I'm just happy to be here, happy to meet all of you and work with this committee and be helpful in any way that I can. So I can't stay for the whole session because I did have a previous engagement a little later, but I'm just so happy to be here today and to see all of you. So thank you. I'll pass it back to you, Yarel.
Thank you so much, Alexandra. It really is a pleasure to meet you, and I look forward to continuing to work with you. I'm already excited with the prospects. So I just wanted to remind everyone about our mission as a WLC, especially because it is connected to Cheers to the WLC. WLC is to build and sustain a network of support of all women identifying Trinity College alumni and students. The WLC creates opportunities for mentorship in which alumni connect with one another and or undergraduates. In addition, the WLC provides experiences and benefits that assist alumni throughout their lives in both personal and professional endeavors, and I can attest to all of that. The WLC also encourages alumni to support the college philanthropically and strives to foster an engaged and dynamic community from which to identify future leaders who will help amplify the voices of all Trinity women. And that is the reason that I am the programming chair. I do this because I love Trinity. I love the education that I received there, as well as the support that I've had. And I'm class of 96, so that'll tell you, over 25 years. And when we talk about philanthropy, we're talking not only financial, but also time. And I freely give a lot of my time to, in particular, the Women's Leadership Council, because I want to make sure that all of those that identify as women are seen and heard. So I look forward to hearing from any of you in terms of suggestions, in terms of programming. And I hope that if anybody is interested, that you'll become more involved within our programming committee or our network committee, and just in the WLC in general. And we will be talking at a later time in terms of the leadership structure. For some of you, if it's been the first time that you have participated, we do have now positions which did not exist before, but it allows us to have a more robust program. And this is a great way to build community as well as the committee. So I hope you'll join us. Now, the date for tonight's program was intentionally chosen. If you know the reason, this is a perfect opportunity for you to use the reaction button. Do you know why? Why is January 11th so important? Just a raise of hands. I see 2, 3, 4. I see some hands. Okay. All right. So January 11th, 1969 is when the Trinity trustees made the decision for the college to go co-ed. Yay! So we, the WLC, hope that this will become an annual celebration for the women of Trinity, and we're delighted to welcome Judy Dworin and Diana Rose Smith to help us with the celebration. So what that means is, please make sure you mark on your calendar January 11th as an annual WLC event. That way you don't make any other plans and you let your friends know or other alumni. Second, we are going to listen to Judy Dworin, but before we hear from Judy, we are going to see a video created by Diana Rose on how to make the suffragette cocktail that she has graciously shared with us. She was supposed to be here this evening, but unfortunately there was a conflict in her schedule. But being the Trinity woman that she is, she pre-planned and made the following video. And from there, we will continue with our program.
Hi, everybody. My name is Diana from the class of 2019. A little bit more about my Trinity career. I was a tour guide. I was a part of the Trinity Pipes, the Chapel Singers, the film festival. I did a whole bunch of stuff. I also designed my own major in media studies, studio art, philosophy, and psychology, and I now work as a graphic designer here in Austin, Texas. So that's a little bit about me. I'm really excited to share this cocktail with you tonight. I'm sorry that I wasn't able to be there to celebrate with you all, but hopefully I'm able to just give you a little bit of a demonstration, show you how to make this cocktail, and give you a little bit of the history. So this is called the suffragette cocktail. It has a bit of funny history. The original recipe was first published in the San Francisco Call in 1909, where the article referenced a Minneapolis bartender that had come up with this new cocktail. And added some funny tidbits about how many of these cocktails will make a man go wash the dishes. So not only for its funny history, but also its homage to the suffragette movement, I thought that this would be a great cocktail to share tonight for women's leadership. So let's get started. I've got my mixing glass with ice in it, and my jigger for pouring out exact measurements of alcohol. And we'll start with my 1.5 ounces of gin. And then we have equal parts of sweet and dry vermouth, about 3/4 ounces. Lastly, we will add just a few dashes of orange bitters. And then grab our stir and stir it maybe 15 to 20 times. Set that aside, grab your strainer to pour it out. Then we'll grab our lemon for our lemon twist. Squeeze it over and drop it in. Cheers.
There you go. Cheers. Now, I was going to show off, and mix the drink as she was doing it. And then I got really nervous about how long it was going to take me. So I did it behind the scenes. Before we get started, does anybody have their glass that they would like to raise? It could be tea, it could be water, whatever you'd like to toast with. And cheers to the WLC. All right, now we are ready to get going. So the reason that we invited Judy is because, does anybody know? Can anyone tell us why? Lucy?
Hi, Judy. It's been a long, long time. I was in, let's see, I was in the class of 1975, and Judy was in the first class, I believe. It was the first class of women at Trinity. And so I was there shortly after she was.
Thank you so much, Lucy. Judy Dworin was one of our first to graduate from Trinity. So the fact that we have that experience speaks to just how short of a period we have been co-ed. So this is something very special that we definitely need to celebrate and to honor. So with that, Judy.
Thank you. And yes, Lucy, it's really wonderful to see you. I was fabulous to notice your name when you walked in. So I was asked really to just talk a little bit about what it was like at that time and why I came to Trinity and why I think it was important that Trinity went co-ed. And in 1969, I was a student at Smith. I had gone to Smith College for 3 years. I'd gone there primarily because I was looking for a good college that also had a dance program, because I am a dancer. I was very interested in continuing that. And at that time, there were very few colleges that kind of fit that category, and Smith was one of them. And I ended up going there and really loving the academic aspect of the college and got lots out of the dance there. But I did find that living in a women's college had both its strengths and its weaknesses, as did the dance offerings there. And in general, I think I was looking to change. And I saw this announcement that the 12 college exchange had begun. This is the first year of so many things that have been fantastic and have continued on through the years. And so I decided to take advantage of that because Clive Thompson, who was an amazing dancer with the Alvin Ailey Company, was coming to Trinity to start a dance program. The sort of underlying argument for why dance should happen at Trinity was that it would be something nice for women, which always made me laugh because almost all the members of the dance classes were men and who loved it. And as you know, and then there were women there, but just that was sort of seen to be the reason to start dance. And so I came to Trinity without knowing much about what I would encounter other than the dance program. But what I did encounter was coming to the college at a really formative and important time. It was the time of the open curriculum, so that there were no requirements other than your major requirements. And there was a great deal of emphasis on independent study and motivation, and an enormous support for motivated students who had ideas that they wanted to achieve, and faculty who were very willing, I found in my experience, to help that to happen. So that while I was there, I was an American Studies major when I came to Trinity. There wasn't an American Studies major at Trinity at the time, but there was the option to create your own major. And so I started out taking dance courses. I started a dance program at an inner city elementary school in Hartford, and was given support for that through the education department. Alexandra McKimmey And I was able to do my American Studies thesis as a dance performance. And Connecticut Public Television was housed at Trinity at the time, and they filmed the performance and it was aired nationally. So it kind of fulfilled every dream that I could have had about college, because it was about taking what you brought and allowing experience to become part of your educational experience there. And so it was also time of the Vietnam War. The college kind of went on strike, not full strike. There were still classes held, but most classes were dedicated in the spring to talking about the war and how to end the war. There was the burgeoning beginnings of Black studies at the college, and there were courses in which I remember electing a course in which there was a limit to the number of white students who could take the class. And so there was a really strong sense of Black identity, and that was really important to see. I think when I think of myself as a woman at the college, I think my perspective was probably different than many women who came as freshmen, who saw this as being the place that they would be at for 4 years. I knew that I would be here for 1 year, and I took advantage of every part of that. And I found that many of my closest friends were international students, because I think we all felt that we were coming from another country, that there was just we were bringing something very different. And I felt wonderful about doing that. I don't think I realized, I think there was a sense of a pioneering spirit that among the 4 women in my class. And I think that the experience that I had there academically and through these various independent studies were formative in what became an opportunity to develop the dance program at Trinity. So little did I know, when I came to Trinity, I petitioned to be able to stay. Smith agreed, my advisor at Smith agreed that this was an amazing opportunity and that I should take it. Some people asked why I would give up a Smith degree, and I really just didn't make any difference. I really felt like Trinity was the place that really kind of fulfilled the idea and the vision that I had for what I had hoped for college to be. And so I think it was probably harder for underclassmen, and I didn't get to know many of them as a student. I got to know many of them as a professor, because I became a professor a year after I graduated, which was another sort of astounding opportunity. So after I graduated, and I remember in the graduation, and I think this is an interesting, the president of the college, Ted Lockwood, at the time, and I think the trustees were very much wanting all the 4 women who graduated to wear academic robes. And it was a time of one of the actions that the student body, many members of the student body decided to take, was to use the money that one would get to rent the robes towards the anti-war effort. And so even though there was some urgency in asking us to wear them, 2 of us did not, and 2 did. And I always felt proud of that, in a way that it was a statement already of what I felt that women could bring to the college in terms of really advocating for change in this society. And that's been my own mission in my professional career since, as being an advocate for social change. And I felt that women brought to Trinity the possibility of change to the college, to the perceptions of what it was to be at a college and to live in an environment and of a college, and to contribute to that in a world that has both women and men, and many other gender identifications as well. But I think that it became the basis for how I conceived of the dance program and what I could offer when I was offered that opportunity a year later. I think being a faculty member was harder than being a student in terms of the lack of acceptance. because not only was I a woman that had just graduated from college, but I was teaching dance, which absolutely had very, very little respect amongst both the faculty, most especially. And I think it was a process of education, of teaching them why it was important and why understanding and learning through the body was not simply a physical activity, but it was an integrative activity of the mind, body, and spirit. And that it was one of the fullest ways that one could learn about the world. And that's what I could share with students. And I could share that with, because I believe that had we had an education through movement in our earlier years, we would all be much different people than we are today. Because I think it opens up so many parts of our humanity that we find that are inaccessible very often, and that we find that we have to kind of search for in ways that are much more available in the experience of movement. So I felt proud to be that, to be able to share that. And it was a gift that I continued for 43 years. I was there with the college. So I was at the college way longer than I ever anticipated, but very glad to see what it was possible to build there, to see the theater and dance program, to see the La Mama program, to see, and eventually when I started doing work in prisons, to bring that to the college as well, and to have an outreach into women's prison, York Correctional Institution, which still is going on today. So I'm looking very carefully at the time because I know I have 10 minutes here, so I'm just about at 10, but I'd be happy to answer any questions. And I think coeducation was a gift to Trinity. I think it was an important, it was an incredibly important decision, and one which will continue. I feel proud of the women as they've traveled through this journey and what they've offered the college. And I can see only even more positive things happening as time goes on. So I'm happy to be here and also to see some familiar faces that I haven't seen for a long time. So if anyone has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer.
Thank you so much, Judy. Laura, are there any questions on the chat?
Thanks, Yarel, and thank you so much, Judy. That was really fantastic. Yes, let's see. Can you tell us some of the surprising experiences you had with male culture at the college?
Okay. Well, I think, for instance, I think that male faculty members had a hard time curtailing the ways that they spoke about things in class because women were in the room. And so very often, not very often, but I would say sometimes male faculty would have to catch themselves in the ways that they were either referring to women or in an example that they were giving just because they all of a sudden realized that women were in the room. So I think that was probably the most surprising thing. And I think that male students were not sure. I think some were really happy about women coming, and I think some really had no use for it whatsoever, and would have much preferred it to be the old way. So I think sometimes there was that sense of resistance amongst some of the men at the college in terms of not exactly welcoming spirit.
Thank you so much, Judy. I have another question in chat from Nancy. How did male students receive the first female faculty members?
Oh, I think male students were fine with it. As far as I could see, I had wonderful male students, and I think they really, really enjoyed the opportunity to learn. I don't think that there was a problem with male students and female faculty members that I experienced myself personally. And I don't think other women did it as well. I can't really speak more generally, but I can speak for myself.
Thank you so much. Alexandra has her hand up. Alexandra.
Yes, hi. Thank you for sharing, Judy. You have such an amazing legacy of the dance program, and just with your experience and your time at Trinity. Are you still currently involved in the dance program? And if so, how much? And also, going into the next 100 years, what area do you think we could still grow the program? Where do you think there still needs to be some movement?
Oh, I think, okay. Yes, I am still, I'm not actively teaching in the program anymore. I actually do a course through the Human Rights Studies program that's related to the work to returning citizens from prison and Trinity students. It's called New Beginnings, and it's part of a course that happens through Human Rights Studies. But I think that the department is growing beautifully. I think it could use more support. I think Trinity was never arts were not on the top of Trinity's list. And that was true, very, very true when I started, and is less true now, but I think is still not completely not true. And so I think that that the college could celebrate the arts, and the theater and dance most particularly, I think would be part of that, and what those forms actually bring. So I would say any kind of expansion that can happen with faculty. I mean, there's very small faculty in both areas, and in dance, I would say most especially. And I think we've all through the years done a great job with a little bit, but I think it could be a little bit more. And I also think that the level of understanding and appreciation of what it is, and how to push it, to bring it to the forefront. I know, for instance, the Trinity La Mama program, which I created with someone from theater, which I really think is a capstone of the department, and is something that is so unique to Trinity, really gets so little mention and attention. I think it just, so I think there are these little gems that are kind of somehow kept a little bit more of a secret than they need to be. And that's where I would hope that it would go. Yeah.
Yeah. From Ellen, could you share more about La Mama, Judy?
Share more about what?
La Mama.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
La Mama is it's a program based in New York City. La Mama is an experimental, a world-renowned experimental theater in New York City. And I believe it was 1986, we started a program there because theater and dance had become a department, and the theater students were not really very sure why they should be taking dance, and in some ways vice versa. And so we took a group of students to New York for the weekend to expose them to the ways in which those forms actually worked in harmony and in support of each other, and very, very innovative ways. And it kind of changed their whole view. And we thought, if it could change these kids' view in a weekend, and these were kids that had been very resistant to the change, how much could it change a student to go for a semester? And so it's a very intensive program in New York City where the students see numbers and numbers of performances of all different kinds to expose them to the different ways that you can create and in these forms. And they do internships, they take classes, they have an academic seminar, and it's really a one-of-its-kind program. It brings students from Trinity as well as from other colleges in the country, and is really, yeah, it's a really wonderful experience.
Thank you, Judy. Anybody have any other questions? I don't see any hands or anything in the chat.
Those were excellent questions because
They
really
were.
help answer a lot. Judy, thank you again. I mean, we're talking over 4 decades. Your contribution is, even though I did not have you personally, I very much knew your name just from my own circle of friends. And I think that all of us in the different years can say the same thing. I don't think there's anyone that doesn't know who you are. So your presence is very much appreciated, and just you being able to attend this event and sharing some of that with us. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure.
So That's right, Jamie. Judy is amazing. That was, and Jamie, did you have Judy as a professor?
Yes, I did. I had Judy for New Beginnings. Yep.
All these beautiful, beautiful memories. So since our numbers are small, initially we were going to break out into breakout rooms to give an opportunity to catch up first. And then part of tonight's theme is to create what's considered a word cloud. And I will get into that in a moment. But first, I want to be able to give you an opportunity to connect with each other. So this is a great time to invite some conversation. But before that, I see that Dwayne has his hand up, so I don't want to lose that.
Well, you had mentioned on how many people know Judy's name. So before meeting Judy last week, I have known Judy's name because I pass her name every day that I come into work in the Trinity columns, because her name is written on one of the posters there. So you're immortal pretty much there in the Trinity Commons building. And it was great to hear your story today, Judy. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Dwayne, would you like to take advantage and introduce yourself? There might be some people here that don't know who you are.
Oh, I do apologize for not introducing myself. I was really just the audience here to enjoy Judy's story, but Urel, yes, I'll take the opportunity. Joined the Trinity College Advancement Team as the Associate Vice President for Advancement. I've been here for about 8 months. Hometown is Houston, Texas. I graduated from Wesleyan University in '95. Don't worry, it's just a different bird, different color. I have enjoyed working with not only my colleagues in advancement, also my colleagues in alumni relations, but I love working with the very passionate Trinity alumni. And thank you very much for allowing me to join this evening.
Thank you, Dwayne, and thank you for your support.
Absolutely.
Dwayne works. He's a silent supporter, even though he does not identify as a woman. He is very much in favor of the work that we do. And for that, it's very much appreciated. So thank you again, Dwayne.
And can I continue on that comment? So you're absolutely right. Not only do I appreciate the power of a woman, but I was raised by a single mom who graduated from Trinity through their
Class
IDP.
of 96.
Class of 96, correct.
Thanks so much, Urel. Renee has her hand up. Renee, you have a
Hi,
question?
everybody. Yes,
Yeah.
Renee Sprinthal, trans female, graduate, 1979. And I just wanted to thank Judy for probably my highlight experience at Trinity. Back when I was going to college, drinking age of 18, so we had a pub, the Trinity pub. And I was fortunate enough to get a job there playing the piano. And it was my first paying gig, actually. And Judy approached me once during the time I was playing and said, you know, I was wondering if you might consider playing piano for an improvisational dance class I have upcoming. And this was my senior year. So she said, you know, you could do this as an elective. And I jumped at the chance. And that was probably, you know, as I mentioned, the highlight at Trinity, you know, being able to do that, you know, for Judy and the wonderful dancers. So I just wanted to thank Judy for that.
Beautiful. Great to see you.
Thank you so much, Renee. These are the words that really matter. And I think not just for Judy, but for us to see what she means to each of us in different ways. Again, even though I didn't get to know Judy personally, I knew exactly who she was or who she is. All right, so again, we don't normally get to see each other, and because of the virtual format, we were going to do breakout rooms to give an opportunity, because one of the things that we hear often is, oh, I wanted to say hello to whoever, and we fill up too much of the time. So we want to give you a few minutes to raise your hand if you want to say something, to communicate with each other. You can use the chat. But then at the same time, I want you to start thinking about what the Women's Leadership Council means to you. Now, the reason is I mentioned that we are creating a word cloud. A word cloud is a way to share thoughts and put it into a system, and you're going to see a preview of it. But those words are the things that resonate with you. So let me share an example. So we're going to use the WLC, but do you see all those words there? That is just an example. But the words that we are going to incorporate into the WLC are the words that are meaningful to us. It could be as many as possible. Obviously, I wanted to have more people. More people means more words, but with just us, we can still create a vision for the WLC for this year. And maybe we can, in later events, continue to incorporate words. So as you're catching up, I'd like you to think about words that are meaningful in relation to the Trinity Women's Leadership Council, in relation to you as an alumni of Trinity, and what you would like to see in the next, let's say, 50 years. We'll do a year, 5 years, 50 years. And if you could actually write that in the chat as you're listening, Jess and I will start compiling the list and entering it into the word cloud. I hope that makes sense, but if it doesn't, please raise your hand and we will answer any questions that you have. Okay, so this is a great moment, again, you can unmute yourself for us to have a conversation, and you add into the chat all the words that you can think of that would create this beautiful word cloud.
Well, hello. I want also to introduce myself and to say thank you to Judy Dworin. Well, I'm an IEP student who just graduated this in 2022, last year, May. And I'm very happy to be attending what I think is my first or second event for this council. I graduated double major theater and dance and film studies, and so I always heard your name. There was an activity that we did in Zoom when we were having our last day of the semester, last show, last night, and you did something that was so beautiful, that was with your hands. It was like a dance only with your hands, gathering things from the earth, talking about nature. I think it was very inspiring because as we were all inside our houses and we couldn't see many people during the pandemic and staying out, the question of how to keep inspiration and how to keep art going, it was out there. Like, how do you keep the energy when you are like cut out from everybody? So it really made me believe that if I was able to take a dance class in Zoom and feel connected to other people, that we're able to make that connection between us, even when we're in different parts of the country or the world. So that's what I want to say. Oh, also, I work at Trinity. So I do data analytics. I work in the Office of Institutional Research. But something that was my dream always was doing art. And my family, we had always that. Like there is, my brother is a gerontologist and a musician. My other brother is an accountant and a musician. So in my case, I say, well, I do data analytics and I'm also a dancer and a writer. And I think that is just tells about the liberal arts education at Trinity. So I pretty much feel at home.
Thank you so much, Nancy, for your words. Anybody else want to share?
Hi, this is Kathy Mae Murphy, class of 78. Judy, I had you in modern dance in Seabury. I don't remember if it was my freshman year or my sophomore year. But yeah, and it was a great class. And I've always been fond of dancing. My husband was not really into dancing. So I really kind of lost decades in the dance world, but my husband passed away in 2019, and I recently, in late 2020, I started dancing again, just ballroom dancing. But I love it, and it's so beautiful, and it's like an artistic, it's I don't know, like to me it's either an art form or athletic or a combination of both. And I want to thank you for giving me the confidence way back then to be able to tap into dancing in that manner. It was very freeing. It was very like it raised my spirits, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Also, I want to say hi to Diana Rose because I've met you a few times. I serve on the Trinity Club of Hartford Executive Committee with your dad, and I know your mom from the WLC going back a few years as well. So thank you for participating in this.
Thank you for sharing. And also, the dance really never stops. Once it starts in you, once you're aware of it, it's there with you always as a support. And even if you step away from it for a while, you can always return to it because it's you and it's inside you. And that's the beautiful thing, to awaken that awareness and then to always know that it's with you and that it's available. Yeah, so thank you. These comments have been amazing. They're very unexpected. I'm feeling a little like volunteering.
Well, and I had, and you were very new. I'm pretty sure that you were very new when I had you in class, and I had no idea how large the program would become at Trinity, and that's a testament to you, and your your vision and your dedication. So thank you.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
So,
You're welcome.
I'd like to add a comment here. Thanking Judy. I was just at Trinity for 3 semesters because I had about a 10-year career in and out of college, and I knew I wanted to study dance. And I also knew that I wanted to go into dance and movement therapy. And so you may have seen my chat that I developed a major in dance and psychology. And I remember sitting in the room with the review committee. I don't remember what they were called at the time, but a number of the professors really couldn't understand how dance could be anything but a professional pursuit. And Trinity didn't have professional programs. And I had to work really hard to convince people that we use our minds as well. We develop cognitive practices, conceptual practices. And I went to graduate school and I was a movement therapist, but more importantly, dance has always been part of my life. Ever since I can remember. But there have been times when I haven't danced, but I've also, wherever I've lived, I've studied, and I've lived a lot of different places. I've studied the movement forms of the culture in which I was living. And it's the richest experience that I have of cultures. And one of the things that I've always admired about you, Judy, just following your career at Trinity over many years, and I agree with you, we don't hear enough about the dance community, at Trinity, because I think you've done really groundbreaking work using movement in the social justice realm and in the cultural change realm. And I admire that too. I mean, you've done wonderful work and I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It's beautiful to see you, Lucy. Thank you.
Oh, I also wanted to say, you can dance anytime, anywhere. And in relation to that, there's a class where I live near Bellingham, Washington, for people who have Parkinson's disease, as well as other neurological difficulties. And people dance sitting down. It is a wonderful form of connection that people have developed when they're feeling fairly isolated in disease, and especially in a degenerative disease. So if you feel the pull, and I actually, after having not danced, in an art form for 25 years, I found when we moved to this area, a multi-generational dance company. And I danced for another 10, 15 years with them. And I continue to dance in various ways, but and I've taught some of these classes for people with Parkinson's. And it's, if you look for it, you'll find some dance. If you look for people, you'll find some dance somewhere.
It's true.
Thanks.
And Lucy, where do you live now?
We live near Bellingham, Washington.
In Washington.
The far northwest corner.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
I've been here almost over 20 years.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Come visit.
Sounds wonderful.
You know how to get my address.
Judy, I don't know if you can see everything in chat, but I can read you a comment by Holly, if that's okay, just in case you didn't get to see it. Would you like me to?
Sure.
Okay. So Holly said, Judy, how wonderful to see your face. And this was to everyone, but directed to you. Judy, how wonderful to see your face. I also had you for dance between 1972 and 1976. What a gift it was to the small number of women who were at Trinity at that time. Men took the class too, but Judy, at her young age, was such a young leader and role model. So that was shared by Holly Laurent. And Amy said earlier that you might not have seen this, that she would like to see us, meaning the WLC, inspired by you, be supportive of the arts at Trinity. And then I just have one quick comment. Judy, I've been at Trinity since 1998, so I've known you quite a long time, but and before that, when I got my master's, but but so many students that I've worked with over the years through the Women's Center and now the Women and Gender Resource Action Center, you've changed their lives. You've impacted them so much, either through New Beginnings or through La Mama, through your classes. Just you inspired so many, and you really did impact and change lives and change students' directions into, one field or one area that they were going to pursue in their lives, to social justice work or to working with women in prison or women coming out of prison, or just so I just wanted to thank you and tell you that your impact has just been phenomenal and beautiful to watch, and just moves me every time I hear from one of the students I've worked with how you changed their lives. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate these comments more than you can say. It's really, it's beautiful to hear. Yeah. And, it wasn't always easy. I mean, the best part was the students. And I always felt like when the struggles were really intense, which they were, I always felt that the students were the reason and always the best reason to be doing it. And it's hard when you're fighting something where there's a lot of opposition to keep persisting and finding a way and working through and taking a little bit at a time and realizing that it's never going to leap forward. It's going to take small steps forward. but each of those small steps gets you further to where you need to go. And I think that was Ron Spencer, who was a wonderful advisor in my and whom I loved dearly for all of his support and everything I did at Trinity, both as a student and afterwards. He always said that I would be renowned for my persistence. So, and it's a good thing because as women that we need to persist against all odds. We need to persist. Yeah. Ellen, you wanted to say something?
I'll just add, I too was a student of yours for one semester, and it was a really joy-filled class to be a part of in the midst of other kinds of classes. It was such a pleasure to go up to Seabury and just be with you and the other women that took the class. Maybe there was a man as well. But I think the other thing that really touches me about women's leadership that you're adding so much to tonight by telling your stories is for us to understand how far we've come. And, you know, my daughter, Diana Rose, was so happy to be a part of this, even though she couldn't be present tonight. She's now singing again. Singing was a big part of her Trinity experience as a member of the Pipes, and she's singing with a chorus in Austin, and that's where she has to be tonight. But I hope she will get to listen to this, because as a recent graduate, she may or may not appreciate how much has changed. You know, when I came to Trinity in the late 70s, I remember being shocked that women hadn't always been there. You know, I don't know what world I was living in. I had a lot of strong women around me, but I remember learning and I was like, wait a minute, you mean they just allowed us in? Like, how could that possibly be? And yet it was true. And luckily, our younger members of the WLC did not have to even experience that kind of bizarre moment when they showed up at Trinity. Things have changed so much, but it's good for us to be mindful of the fact that it wasn't always so. And it took persistence on the part of strong men and strong women. And so that's all. Just wanted to share that.
Absolutely.
Does anyone have any comments or thoughts or ideas or inspirational, motivational words about where you'd like to see, what you'd like to see the WLC doing this in the coming year, in the coming 5 years or future? Just sort of dream. Well, that was one of the issues one of the things we wanted to talk about.
Correct. Thank you so much, Laura, for bringing it. And
Yeah.
I'm going to share what it looks like at this moment based on the words that you've already shared. Can you see that? Am I sharing my screen okay? You see the word cloud?
Yeah.
Okay. So as you can see, the words that have been shared: empowering, harmony, creativity, reach creativity, strength, grow, strength. So as you can see, I did not omit if it was repeated. I will add it as many times as you add to it. So hopefully this will help you add something. But I think that a comment was made by Ellen in terms of our younger alumni not knowing really, you know, the support that exists. And for me, that is something that I would like to continue working with, and just sharing, because many times I believe that there is an assumption that you just know, that you go from one thing to another. But really, it's with mentorship and taking the time to provide these types of programs so that we can share. Pearl, do you mind if I put you out there just for a moment?
Of course.
So I met Pearl, like, what was it? 2018, when were you a freshman?
2017.
2017. I met her as a freshman and I connected with her mom. I had already seen her in past events, but didn't, you know, really make the connection until Pearl was there and her mom was there. Class of, what class is your mom?
82.
82. So she is in that advantage that she has a mother that is involved and has exposed her to all the things that Trinity has to offer after Trinity. And as a result, she's one of our most active young alumni I know. I mean, not only is she part of our programming committee, but she is also an active member. I believe you have a position in the Trinity Club of Hartford.
Yes, I'm the liaison between the Women's Leadership Council and the Trinity Club of Hartford.
So as you can see, that's, you know, many of us are in that point of transition, and we all remember what it was like when we didn't have the time because we were busy raising a family, or we were in grad school, or and so on and so forth. And but we also can see that it is possible, but we make, again, assumptions that we just simply know. And the reality is that there are many of our students that don't know. And as an educator, one of the things that I have realized is that this pandemic also affected the social skills of understanding to keep the camera on, of understanding what it is to network and to meet people in person. Those communication skills have been deeply affected. And so
Yes.
these are one of our tasks, is to be able to not only emulate, but to educate. And actually, I'm going to add that word to our word cloud: educate and emulate. You got to write that
And
down.
how about reconnect?
Reconnect, you said?
Yes.
Will do. So I'm going to let you
Thank
continue
you.
speaking. I've already taken up too much space while I continue to work on this. You can actually see how I do it while you're talking.
Well, I just type a comment in the chat, but I think it's worth just saying it aloud, that I think as much as we recognize that co-ed is something relatively new, and that it has been made a big change for the lives of many women, still in the workplace and in other areas, there is much work to be happening as well. So I added just a comment to say something that I would like to see is some sessions or discussions about what we mentioned here: communication, leadership skills, negotiation skills for women. I think also going many times working remote and not having the interaction make these conversations also very difficult and hard. And as we are trying to reconnect with the world, and many times going back to the office in person for or to readapt to hybrid schedules, is still on the table. The question is, like, how are the rules possibly sometimes still different in some industries for male and female workers? And that's something that sometimes I don't think as much, but when I see my brothers and the questions they face, I'm saying, like, wow, they don't have to think about many factors that women think, and they may not realize about it. So when asking for advice, it's just great to know that there is a support group of women who have gone possibly through these stages earlier.
Nancy, thank you so much. I'm actually looking to see how I can word it to incorporate those expressions in our word cloud. This is the kind of feedback that Jess and I are always looking for, because it's the members of the WLC that creates the programming. We're just the what do you call it? Not the navigators, the conductors. We make it happen. Do you hear that, Dwayne? Make sure that you're taking notes.
And Nancy, I don't know if you saw it in the chat, but Michelle Sanders said, that's a great idea. I do this for a living. I'm a life and business coach and work with women in and out of business, and would happy to facilitate a discussion on that. And then Jamie, Bianca just agreed and said for, let me just read this. For the younger generation, because Jamie just graduated in 2021, having an event to empower our younger alumni with their next steps in their education careers would be very beneficial. And then Amy said that we can do periodic sessions. Women need to talk to each other more about such matters. I'm also aware that the AAUW, the American Association of or Association of American University Women, has a program called Start Smart, which teaches women, those who identify as women, to speak up, to advocate for themselves in the workplace, and also to negotiate, higher salary, or a starting salary or whatever. So it sounds like we have, but with Michelle, we have in-house resource. So that's exciting.
Just thinking about a couple of things. Just the whole idea of supporting voice, of the strength of voice. And sometimes it's very hard to put one's voice out there. And something that, I think that supports that, and also women seeing themselves as agents of change. And I think that that's something that I know that I've spent my life on, and I think that every one of us can be that in whatever way we choose to. There's no prescribed way to change. It could be simply changing oneself. It can go out to being changing something in the world that we feel needs to change, but that we all have the potential to do something. And I think that sort of activism, from a very personal place to a maybe somewhat larger perspective, is something that would be great to encourage.
I'd like to add to that, Judy, because I think that it's wonderful to encourage women in the larger world. And we also need to encourage each other and others to grow inwardly, to become more aware of our own process, our feelings, our emotions, our desires, our inclinations to act or not to act, and to really look at ourselves from an inward stance, so that we can bring our more authentic selves to the larger world. Otherwise, we're sort of acting on top of a base that we're not really well-founded in. And actually, that's one of the things that I think dance and movement gives to people. It's one of the avenues toward the inward world, I guess I would say. And there's a kind of safety in exploring the inward world that a lot of people are afraid of it, but there's a real safety in it, I think, that we can find and support each other within that. But I don't know if there are any programs that would be available within that could offer Trinity alumni. But it's not just about, go out and get them, boy, girls, or whatever. We need to grow.
One thing I think is really important is we need to support each other. And when I was coming up in the TV news business in a network, it was really cutthroat, and it was still a man's world. And, the experience that I bring to the table, from working for 40 years more, that's helpful to younger people, although they may not have experienced it. And this is something that I think we can do for each other, maybe through the structure of the Women's Leadership Council. And I will say that having a background in performing, even though it's not what I pursued long-term, made a difference in my self-confidence to deal with all of the garbage that we went through, back in the late 70s and early 80s and so forth. But anyway, this isn't about my career. I loved every minute I spent with Judy at Trinity. So let me thank you in person. I just think we can leverage our own experiences to help others. And to me, that's a really important part of being involved with the Women's Leadership Council.
Thank you, Amy, and I agree with that as well.
I'm Eve Marie Perugini, class of 88, and I'm just so happy to be here tonight. And I wanted to say thank you to Judy. I just found your story so inspiring. I didn't have the good fortune of having danced with you, but I had many friends who did when I was at Trinity in the 80s. And I was on this science track. I was so sure I was going to be a psychologist, which I am today, but I was planning an academic career in psychomusicology, and my timing was good. I had Bill Mason, the psych department, refer me over to John Pladoff in the music department. He was brand new, he just gotten there. So I mention it because it ended up, I actually chose Trinity as you did because of the open curriculum. I was so excited to be able to focus on something that I was passionate about and not to have to wait. But part of what I loved about Trinity was by the time I got to my senior year, I was all caught up and I had the opportunity to study broader things. But I am really appreciating what people are saying about finding our voices. And I have to say, Judy, you dance with your voice. The cadence and choreography to it. It's so comforting. I just love listening to you. And it has offered me such perspective tonight that the first word I wrote down was inspiration. And I would love to hear more stories from you and from other alum. I'll just tell a quick story. I felt like when I was at Trinity, I'd had such a good experience overall, but I had that awareness that it had not always been co-ed. And it wasn't until a month after graduation that I was actually still working for the catering department. And I was actually catering and, serving at an alumni event. And I'd been assigned to the class that was celebrating their 50th reunion at Trinity. So now imagine, of course, it was only men in attendance. Some had brought partners, but one man approached me and he said, "Why didn't you go to a women's college? What are you going to do now? Wait tables?" And I'd not had that experience at Trinity, but thank goodness I caught my breath. And I said, "Actually, I am the manager of the internet access down at the computer center. And if you'd like to meet me there tomorrow, I'd be happy to give you a tour." But it was so, it really stayed with me. That story stayed with me because I wasn't expecting that, but I share it to say, what a long way we've come and how grateful I am for the women who came to Trinity before I did and the ones who continue to make it grow. So I wrote down inspiration, hope, vision, collaboration, connection. I love that people wrote mentorship, and forgive me for not knowing this, but is there ever a WLC event where we include undergraduates or invite them, before graduation, or do they wait?
We actually have the networking committee that does networking 101. And we occasionally also offer some programs that give that opportunity. But Pearl is actually a member of Venture, which is another aspect that we do need to continue to grow. Pearl, do you mind sharing a little bit about Venture?
Of course. So Venture is a women's leadership program. It's a pre-orientation program. So you come on campus a couple of days early, and it's really talks about women's leadership. It talks about different kinds of skills that you can develop. It's also just a great way to connect with a smaller group of women. We usually have about 40 students or so before they come on campus. And that's also where you can make lifelong friends. That's actually where I met Jamie, who is my roommate for the next 3 years there. So it's just a really great event to help start women to further improve their women's leadership skills. And then also I see that as a good way that sometimes we have some of the WLC members come and talk to us on one of the nights. So it's also a good way to get us also a little bit to be more exposed to the WLC.
So we are working to strengthen that relationship. But there are other also small groups that we're also trying to collaborate to make sure that we diversify as much as possible, that we see as many affinity groups as possible so we can give them those same opportunities. And so a lot of these things intersect, but the work will not happen without you, by sharing what a great evening you had, or as soon as you see an upcoming event, you share with your friends saying, "I'm going to be there. I hope that you will too." That will also help. I mean, mind you, we have, I believe, over 900 members. And obviously not everybody can make it. We have small pockets, but nevertheless, we have had in the last, especially couple of years, nearly 900. Because as soon as you register, you also become a member of the WLC. So I just want to say thank you to the words of encouragement, of support, of connection, the reminder to Judy of what an important member she is, not only to Trinity, but also to the WLC, that she has touched so many lives, and including those that identify as male that are not, in this group. So the work that you're doing is incredibly important, and we celebrate you. But I also celebrate all the people that are in attendance this evening, because these programs don't happen unless you show up. And before we finalize, I just want to share the word cloud as it is in its most updated version. So we're going to be using this word cloud as often as possible to remind us of what it is that we stand for and what it is that we strive for. Amy, you want to add something?
If you don't mind, I just want to say this. I would never have gotten involved in the Women's Leadership Council. I mean, I went to a meeting in Washington, but I wasn't really aware of the Women's Leadership Council. It was early days. And I think I owe a lot to Melissa, and she did so much to foster people to come in and to do stuff. And I don't think we'd have 900 members without the work she did for so many years. And I couldn't let tonight go by and you said 900 members. So I was like, that's my cue. So I just feel like we have to acknowledge how much she did to help build this amazing group. And it's on our shoulders now to help grow it and make it, more and better going forward.
Amy, thank you. It's true. And that's why you're one of our committee members. Jess, how are we doing?
We're ready to kind of close this out if anyone has any final remarks.
I just wanted to say thank you to all of you, because it's just been amazing to be here tonight, and an honor to hear you, and also to see all of you and what you've become. It's just it's a beautiful thing to watch the evolution of people that you encounter, or that I've encountered at various times, and to come together and to see where you are now. And those of you that I've never seen before, it's very nice to meet you. But when I was invited to this, I could never have imagined that it would reach me in the deep way that it has, and it only has done that because of you. And so just keep going. I will come back to these meetings. I haven't in the past, but I will join it whenever I can. And keep being the beautiful women that you are, because it's just wonderful to see all these trajectories of growth and of giving and of strength and beauty. So thank you, really.
And I concur, and I want to thank everyone for joining us this evening. And hopefully you will keep an eye out for an email between tonight and tomorrow. If you could take the time to fill out the survey, that gives us feedback in terms of what we've done well, but what you would like to see. Keep reiterating, because those are the type of information that we use to continue to grow. And I want to also thank my committee members that are on the call this evening, and even those that were not able to make it tonight, but made it possible. The ideas and how we come together is all a product of your involvement. So thank you very much, and I wish everyone a good night.